Shout out to our sponsors at IconBet. Open source, decentralized gaming, no deposits, play straight from your wallet. IconBet, made by the players, for the players. Ion Icon is proudly supported by Icon Nation and the Icon community. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Ion Icon, the episode where we go around the ecosystem and bring you all the latest and greatest news. And guess who's back? Finally, Icongrapher. Welcome back. How are you, man?
I'm pretty good. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. It's great to have you back. Running solo sessions just doesn't work. I just feel like
Yeah,
too much
I can
talking.
imagine that gets like yeah, I can imagine that can get a little tiring. Imagine more sips of water in between and all that other good stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, the last couple weeks I had some work issues, and I think as we mentioned probably 100 times now, it's we're probably the least optimally positioned geographically to each other in terms of how time zones work because our windows of when we're either not working and not sleeping are pretty small, so it's hard to fit stuff in. And then last week was Thanksgiving for us Americans out here, so
Yeah.
I was uh, I was unplugged. But appreciate you taking over the ship completely while I was gone. You still run the ship while I'm here, but nonetheless, it was 100% effort. So it's
Nah.
it's certainly appreciated by me and certainly the listeners too, as I imagine.
Yes, thanks, man. Thanks, but it's yeah, good to have you back. And you know what? It may market perspective, it may not be all buzz, but there's definitely buzz back in the air within our community. I feel so. I'm keen to get through the news and talk about that. What I've been noticing, and I'm sure people have as well. But let's not break tradition. Let's talk markets. Let's two clueless guys about TA talk markets. Oh,
Yeah.
how are we going? BTC.
Well, I mean, we're just doing the sideways thing, which it looked like we were getting close to. It seems to me, or at least what people are saying, and what just kind of I noticed the trend is like 58.5, give or take around there, is pretty hard to break. We get close to it, and then we kind of crash back down. So I think that's happened 2 or 3 times now. So hopefully, if we make another run at it, we can break through. It also sounds like 60K or somewhere in the 60Ks. I think I've seen 60.1 or 60.7.
Mm.
That's another key area to reclaim. But yeah, I mean, it's sideways can often sometimes be more frustrating just because it's so much indecision and things like that, and it gets boring. And nothing, I think my entire crypto portfolio has moved within like 3% up and down the last, I don't know, 10 days or so. So certainly compared to some of the price pumps we were getting, especially as far as ICX is concerned, a couple weeks ago. It's definitely much less fun, but hey, at least we're not completely crashing or anything like that. Kind of like we were back in May. So
Mm.
obviously, I know ICX is down, especially relative to where we hit again a couple weeks ago. Both, you know, we hit 271. What was it, like 2 Mondays ago? And then they announced um, and then we hit 271, and that's what triggered. I say that facetiously. Triggered the Bitcoin dump. We were hanging around 65K, fell down to like the high 50s, and then we got another. ICX got another pump based on the good news of the airdrop announcement. And sure enough, like literally as soon as that happened, the daily close hit, and then Bitcoin just started tumbling down. So very unfortunate timing as far as the way the ICX price action has like perfectly lined up with Bitcoin downward price action. But sometimes that's how it goes. I think there's still. I was looking at what OMG did because they had their airdrop announcement. They announced back earlier this year, and yeah, they had a nice spike in one day, and then it kind of crashed immediately back to where it was. Now they kind of happened to be where they were kind of in the start of the uptrend over the summer as far as when Bitcoin started crawling back. So
Mm.
they got some benefit from that. But I think as we get closer to the actual airdrop announcement, we'll start to see some more price action. I think part of it is there's been general timeline, but not a specific date yet. So I think there's still a little bit of uncertainty floating around out there. But I would I'd be surprised if there wasn't some price momentum based around that. Now, will it last beyond the airdrop? Hard to tell. But we'll see. We have the airdrop coming up. I think there's a lot of people who suspect that we'll get, people seem to be optimistic about December and optimistic about the new year. Not everyone across the board, but that's just kind of what people are thinking. And you probably know more about this than I do, but the on-chain data, as far as Bitcoin's concerned, still looks pretty promising.
Yeah.
So I think as long as that's intact, I feel like the market itself isn't going to necessarily, dump like it did back in May, or even worse than that. And as long as that happens, potentially we can get, with BTP launching, and the fundamentals that come with that, with the ICE airdrop and ICE launching in the near future, hopefully. As long as we have a chance to kind of get some good price action with Bitcoin staying reasonably healthy, I think that's what matters. And of course, if the whole market really takes off, then we'll obviously be beneficiaries of that as well.
Yep. Look, on chain, yes, it has been consistent. Although in the last 2 days, I've noticed definitely there's been spikes of large coins, Bitcoin, say 5,000 to 10,000, moving to exchanges. However, sometimes these are internal reshuffles. I have noticed a few on-chainers are just talking both scenarios at the moment because a little bit is reflective of the inflation. Powell coming out and saying stuff. Is it Powell, that guy? He just seems to time these things perfectly, and so there's a bit of uncertainty there. However, let's see. Like I find it interesting. On chainers have always been full bull scenario regardless, but at the moment they are putting out a little bit of a bearish case, and rightfully so, because they need to show both sides of what can happen. Overall, looking at ICX, I've got the chart up here. I can graph yes, we can see, like, I've had this line as support, and I don't know, I'm not the best of, but some initial fundamentals I learned is your resistance and support and stuff like that. Look left, and you can see, looking left in the April timeline as well, this particular support that we are literally bang on closing $1.70 is something that has been very strong through April, March, before we bursted up to $3.20. We can see it came down and kind of hovered and then bounced off it once before, and again didn't claim back a new high. But hopefully it holds. It seems to have bounced off it a few days in a row and closed above it. So fingers crossed. This holds, and let's see what happens. I think there's a lot of positive sentiment. BTP around the corner as well. At the end of the day, though, it does come back to what good old Bitcoin goes to do. And at the moment, that seems to be struggling. Again, sorry, bearish bull. I did not delete the lines, but I've tried to keep it simple.
Well,
It's
it's tricky too, because like if you go back and look at the last time that, in 2017, 2018, Bitcoin hit all-time high, and then it kind of fell off. And granted, it kind of went, if I recall, it peaked, and then it crashed a little bit, and then it kind of went back up a little bit, and then it crashed, and then it went sideways for a bit. But during that time, that's when the alts really took off. So it's, okay, do we now, just because that happened last time, does that mean it's going to happen this time the exact same way? Who knows? There's a million scenarios that could play out, but theoretically, if it's, we could see Bitcoin crash, down to the high 40s or mid 40s or whatever it's going to be, and theoretically, the theoretical reason, and I think there's some empirical data reason showing that the reason that we got the alt season last time is because all the people who had made so much money on Bitcoin, they sold it off and then moved down, down the market cap into Ethereum and then the other one. So, Ethereum's been showing some strength too lately.
Yeah, it broke
So
out.
it's just one of those things. Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's kind of like, we're so much at the mercy of Bitcoin right now, where we can be having crazy, we can be pumping like crazy, and then we just get totally, swept out because Bitcoin decides to crash.
Yeah.
And but at the same time, theoretically, if you're look at 2017 and 18 and say, okay, I expect this to happen again, you'd almost be kind of rooting for a Bitcoin crash, because that's what's going to create the liquidity. All those people taking profits, it's what's going to create the liquidity to get, theoretically, an alt season. So that's just one way of looking at it potentially. Obviously, a very optimistic way of looking at it, especially if you're holding alts like people who hold ICX do. But if you're thinking history repeats itself, and there are instances where that has happened a lot in crypto.
Mm.
There's also, we also have, we've only had 3 or 4 cycles, so the sample size isn't super high either. So each cycle's been a little bit different. So just showing ways you can kind of look at things differently.
Yeah. Look, I don't remember though last time when it rotated into all so many meme coins and crap like that, getting front and center. Like there was Doge and that was it. So it's interesting how much money seems to rotate in shit. Pardon my French, but it really ticks me off. That happens. But I think another chart that's interesting is the ETH BTC chart. I actually have it on here. I hadn't looked at it in a while, and last time it hit zero point zero 0.08 one ETH worth that much BTC, and it seems like just yesterday we actually it's implying we hit an all-time high on that chart. Although it didn't close that way, but yeah, so that's interesting as well. Look, it's a crossroads. I think Iconographer, you and me were having a conversation before this. The markets have gone so well, and it's like, well, the personal conversation between us is like, at what point is it taking profits and feeling happy, or being greedy and maybe there is a much bigger run left, or it starts to crash and having that doom and gloom feeling where I had acquired, it felt like I had so much wealth and it's vanishing very quickly, as we've seen with the May dump and previous dumps. So it's
Yeah.
it's
Well,
a
it's everyone who got washed out in 2017, they said, it's okay. I'm not going to let that happen again.
yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people who are sitting in positions now where they're up a very significant amount, especially if they played the bear market smart and DCA and all that stuff. But again, it just feels, based on expectations, it doesn't feel like we truly hit the top. Just,
Yeah.
people throwing out price predictions of 80K Bitcoin, 100K Bitcoin, 200K Bitcoin. And obviously, the more extreme they are, the less likely they are. But it's just it's a tough thing that everyone goes through, whether you're in the Icon community
Yeah.
or not. And also to consider, basically since the 2020, March 2020 COVID plunge, I mean, basically the whole market's been in an uptrend for almost 2 years now. So,
Yeah.
and I think that's kind of similar to how 2017, uptrend is different than, parabolic move up. You know what I mean? So
Mm.
as long as the market's ticking upward, which I think in 2017 it probably ticked up for technically went in an uptrend for probably 2 or 3 years also. So that's not that big of a thing. But I think everyone's just having the memories of 2017 where it goes parabolic, and I think people are, as much as you're afraid of, I don't want to be stuck holding bags again in another bear market.
Yeah.
There's also the sense of like, okay, if I'm the person that sells even just a little bit, and then turns out that, next thing I know, everything goes, pumps 1000x, or maybe not 1000x, but 10x, 20x, whatever it might be, based on our memories of 2017. That's just,
Yeah.
it's always the tough part to be in, and psychologically, it's harder to handle than I think people think it will be, especially because it doesn't go from 1 to 10 overnight like we kind of remember it doing in 2017.
Mm.
It's 0 to 1 to 2 down to 150 down to, and I'm not giving exact prices. I'm just kind of giving a scale of how price growth goes. So I think everyone has different goals and aspirations for getting into crypto. Some just want to make a little extra pocket change. One are
Mm.
trying to like change their lives. Others are just trying to feel like a pretty good profit. So just whatever your goals were and everything like that, just try to stick to them, and especially if you had a plan going forward, try not to deviate from that plan.
Yeah. And I think what's
And this is,
very
and again, we're all, caveat, not financial advice, caveat, we're not experts, caveat, we're not traders at all. We just kind of we're all just spitballing here based on our prior experiences in crypto. So take everything we have with the smallest grain of salt possible.
totally. And you know what is I've been smiling. I've got this big smile on my face, Graf, as you've been, because everyone listening, they're feeling the same stuff, and we also are grappling with all these things. We feel the same way. We're not experts or anything like that. It's just it's funny how our minds work in this situation. So I think take everything as we've said it. I always, close group of friends that own crypto, I always say, but I never listen to my own advice. And this is something Tony always told me, it never hurts to take profit. And it doesn't. I share personal experience in the I happened to buy a bit of Matic, very low, because I was very big on layer twos at the time. I was like, Ether's congested. This is the solution. They have a working solution. It's bound. So I acquired a tiniest bit in different L2s. And when Matic mooned, for once I was like, you know what? I don't care. I'm taking profits. I'm not. And that was the graceful thing I did. Thankful that I actually did it. And then the May crash came. Thank God for Matic at that time. I chose to pick one coin to cash in on. So yeah, personal
And of
experience with
course, as soon as you sell it, you want to go, you go check the price 15 times a day because
yeah,
you're worried, did I sell too soon? Did I
exactly.
sell too soon? But that actually wears off, at least in my experience. It wears off over time, and you kind of
Yeah.
once the profit hangs out in your actual bank account for a little while,
Mm.
you kind of care less and less about what could have been. I think there's a quote by I think it might be J.P. Morgan, and who knows if it's true or not, but that's who it's attributed to. Basically said, I made a fortune by selling too early. So everyone thinks they can hit the exact top, but
Yeah.
the ones who usually try to end up becoming the bag holders. So
Yeah.
just something to consider.
No, that's a good one, Icongraph. I like it. Cool.
Yep.
Well, let's do it. Let's move on. I think we've shared our experiences. We've dropped some knowledge. We've just had a good old chat. Let's move on now to the news. What is the first up? What have we got?
So we've actually got a little bit of news from Iconloop. Actually, kind of a little bit of a surge in the last week for whatever reason. So I guess I want to point out one thing. Kind of noticed in the past, the foundation and Iconloop, there was always a recognition they were related, but it seemed like over the last year or so there had been a lot of you know they've been very much treated as separate. So where when the foundation wouldn't really talk about Iconloop a whole lot, and Iconloop wouldn't really talk about the foundation, but over the last few weeks, I've seen the foundation talking more and more about what Iconloop is up to, what they're doing, how it integrates or potentially integrates with ICX and the Icon public chain. So I guess just from a communication standpoint, that's been nice to see. I think whenever Iconloop would come out with good news or whatever, everyone the instantly replies would just be, when public chain, does it use public chain, ICX, da 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 da. And so we're getting the fact that we get more clarity on that, right off the bat. Some of these tweets and some of these announcements has been nice to see, and I think a good, helpful from a communication standpoint. But so I guess the first bit of news, I'll read the tweet here. It came from Min Circle on Twitter. Iconloop participates in Jeju type shared logistics platform Modang. Iconloop has applied a blockchain-based blockchain logistics history management system and payment to the platform. This platform has launched its pilot service already. So I'm going to read from the, I think it was either article or release about this. It's translated from Korean. I'm using Google Translate, so grammatically it might be a bit off. But it says, Modang, a Jeju-style shared logistics platform, aims to overcome the regional limitations of an island and realize a central city of digital shared logistics where people and nature coexist. It is an open platform that provides joint delivery service and shared space matching service. Through this, we plan to relieve the inconvenience of local residents due to the impossibility of delivery to island areas, provide and expand joint logistics services for Jeju companies, and spread the sharing economy paradigm by sharing the necessary space. So, I think that's certainly a little bit complex. I think whenever you get into logistics and things like that, it can get a little bit tedious to understand and things like that. But ultimately, Jeju's been doing some other stuff. They're trying to be kind of a blockchain leader to a certain extent. They've done some other initiatives with Iconloop in the past. And so it's not, so super surprised they're continuing to do that. So basically, the kind of the zooming out version of that is just a kind of a blockchain applications for logistics, especially as it applies to this specific island. So it's hard to tell, what the specific ramifications are going to be for this. I don't have a firm understanding of the Jeju Island economy. Just because I've never been there and I live very far away, but nonetheless, it's certainly a nice little bit of adoption It's nice to see Iconloop continue to do these things. And we'll go into a couple other things to work on as well. But anyway, it's just a nice. It was a nice little bit of news we got there. Do you have anything to add on that, Fez, or
No,
we move
I
on to the
think
next?
this is an interesting one. I know everyone in this particular is thinking we see this is a public chain. How does it use a public chain? I guess in this scenario we don't have that answer, and I don't want to speculate, but it's a good one to look into. Um, but overall, in this case, this wasn't the only bit of news, was it, Iconographer? Let's roll on. We had something
Yeah.
else
So the
drop.
other Yeah, so here's a tweet from the Icon Foundation. Iconloop has launched a big data storage platform that uses blockchain technology to store data gathered from the use of smart farm technologies. So again, I'll read from the translated article. Efforts to develop and expand smart farm solutions based on new technologies of the fourth industrial revolution. And for those who don't know, the fourth industrial revolution is kind of a program that the South Korean government has pushed as far as new technologies are concerned, with blockchain being kind of a one of the key ones involved in that. So, anyway, fourth industrial revolution in a situation in which the agricultural sustainability is seriously threatened due to the continuous decrease in the agricultural population and area and the rise in energy and labor prices. This is spreading all over the world. In Korea, the establishment of the Smart Farm Big Data Platform to secure a new growth engine and global competitiveness in the agricultural and livestock industry through the first generation Smart Farm Industrialization Technology Development Project is significant, and that is the foundation that will become the core of successful business execution. Iconloop enhances the transparency and reliability of the system by enabling safe and convenient storage and management of data through blockchain technology. So, I think kind of a mouthful that first paragraph I especially when you factor in the translation imprecision, I guess you could say. But nonetheless, basically, look, they've established a blockchain system for better managing the data related to this smart farming industry. So I assume, I don't know a whole lot about smart farming and things like that, but just probably helps better resource management, production management, things like that, in order to, better modernize the agricultural system in certain areas of Korea. So, you can imagine, it's hard to tell the scale of this thing, but you can think, okay, agriculture is, one of the biggest industries in the world, presumably makes up a sizable portion of the Korean economy. So the extent to which they roll this out is, it could be pretty impressive. Again, there's no specific thing in this article as far as how, ICX public chain is used and everything like that, at least as far as I noticed.
So
But nonetheless,
I can comment on
go
that
ahead.
iconograph, and this is what
Oh,
I
perfect.
was trying made hinted at the sentiment, the shift in what I'm picking up happening at the moment. So the foundation did tweet this, and again we saw in that initial tweet people were curious about, is it using public chain? What's going on? Then, as if out of nowhere, our token tech guy, Andrew, messages with a bit of retweets that this does use proof. So in the background, a few conversations happen, and then we see the foundation retweets this a day later with a bit more information and detail around it. And I went and found the tweet to show everyone, and it's like a bit of a thread. And on the number 4, as a reminder, proof certificates are issued on the Icon public chain, which means ICX use for every proof transaction. So they've really kind of taking on that feedback to go, when we're seeing updates like this, we're always, the first question on our mind is there, how does it utilize a public chain? So it's great to see that a bit more direct communication when it is utilizing, they are revising the way they communicate and actually calling that out. Now, not remember, all everything Iconloop does will not use the public chain. So there are going to be times where it just doesn't happen, and we shouldn't be disappointed. But it's just great to see this kind of information trickle out. And I think what's hilarious is. Where's that proof? Yeah, that got a fair amount of retweets as well. Just that particular tweet, because people were very excited about it. So it's great to see.
Absolutely. Um, so in another piece of Icon Loop news, so I'm reading a tweet again from Min Circle. Today, South Korean presidential candidate Yoon Suk Yeol, hopefully I pronounced that reasonably correct, visited Iconloop Lounge to participate in startup regulation talk that had about 100 reporters and major broadcasting companies in Korea attending this event. Iconloop CEO J.H. Kim also participated in the seminar and shared opinions. So, it wasn't like a thing promoting specifically Iconloop, but the fact that it happened at their office and had a presence by Iconloop leadership, that's certainly pretty cool. I did a bit of research just in terms of figuring out if this presidential candidate was like, I don't follow Korean politics super closely, but to what extent, how serious of a candidate they actually were. Out here in America, anyone can kind of run for president. So just because they're a presidential candidate doesn't necessarily mean that they're that important or anything like that. But ultimately, this person who visited the office, he's actually there's essentially two major parties in Korea. You have a Democratic Party who's currently the one in power, and then you have the People Power Party. The People Power Party is the one that Yoon, who's the one who visited, he represents. So it's kind of like the equivalent of if you're following American politics, you know Joe Biden going to when he was running for president, going to meet with the Iconloop, having an event at Iconloop or something like that. So certainly brings a lot of attention to the industry to begin with, but also Iconloop specifically, and the fact that J.H. Kim, who is the CEO of Iconloop, had a presence. Certainly pretty cool. So a nice thing. And then we also got a little bit of a spin-off on it of an NFT related to these regulation talks, got printed on Craft. So it's a cool way to kind of memorialize what happened here, and also the fact that it got minted on kind of in a quasi-official capacity on Craft, which is part of the Icon public chain. That's pretty cool as well. So some nice little bit of buzz, within the Icon/Iconloop community, and certainly something positive to see.
Yep, I agree. I don't have anything else to add, but I think it's pretty cool that it ended up on Craft. And so, from the way I understand it, and we've kind of touched on this a little bit. Yes, enterprise, corporate, government news it kind of dried up a little bit on all fronts in South Korea, and I believe that was largely to do with the government in power at the moment. Probably wasn't as blockchain friendly, so it appears this candidate is the opposite, and with obviously the blockchain companies are getting quite excited, especially when he's doing the rounds because it means changes afoot. So. This was great. It was great to see again a common theme here, as you mentioned, Iconographer. With everything going on over there, the foundation has always tried to maintain more so than before that distance because they are a technological partner that Icon has. So it's great to see a bit of this news trickling from both ends, from Icon Loop, and then we have Foundation and Min also getting quite excited and pushing this news out. It's great. Good positive sentiment.
Yep. So on another front, we had Min got pretty active on Twitter this week. He put out a tweet basically saying, here, let me read from it here. What's it? Loads. He says, maybe, and he put 3 Y's in there, maybe Icon needs a name change. Any good suggestions? So, as one would expect, there were plenty of suggestions that came along, some pretty interesting, some less so. But nonetheless, I think it was just kind of interesting. It's one of those things where, okay, is he just like tweeting this just to kind of create a little fun side discussion or something like that? Or are they generally contemplating a name rebrand, that sort of thing? It seems that it's probably potentially the latter, and it would kind of make sense based on, now we've got ICE come down the pipeline, we've got BTP, and sometimes, a rebrand is nothing new in crypto. And so, maybe there's something maybe a renaming is happening in order to kind of better highlight some of the strengths of the the ecosystem, especially as far as it concerns interoperability. And so, like I said, plenty of suggestions that came along. Very interested to see to what extent this actually, moves forward. But certainly something a little bit exciting and certainly unexpected as well.
Yeah, I've refound the tweet. It wasn't showing it the way I wanted to, and you can see 235 comments in there. Alpha, who's been dropping some serious alpha with his tweets. He actually put up this Metaloop name, and he put up a picture, and I've got it on the page here with a ring and this cool all the BTP connected chains kind of coming to the ring and connecting to it, which is the icon logo. It's pretty cool, actually. This image itself, regardless of the name change or not, we should be using this image. The man has talent. But yeah, look, it's interesting. It's funny though, the community is very divided on this front. A lot of people feel yes, the rebranding is needed. A lot of people are like no. I honestly, I've been thinking about it. I don't know how I feel. Yeah, I feel, I always come back to the tokenomics need adjusting, and for me, the IOSS 3.1, that is a big thing that needs to happen, and that needs to happen like it should be around the corner. I feel it needs to happen like right now, but yes, it should be happening very soon. So to me, that is a big change. I keep thinking of name change. It would be good for a rebrand, I guess, to shake off. A lot of different blockchains have done that and had a lot of success. So anyway, I don't know. I don't, as you can see, I don't have a view here or there on this. But it's great to see Min. He just posted, but he also got in there and was answering so many questions. In all honesty, at times he was just being blunt and brutal with some of the suggestions. But yeah, good stuff.
Well, and speaking of ISS 3.1, he did another tweet basically saying all icon validators will now be held accountable for block production due to, and then A pointed out the bonding for P-reps. And P-reps are now required to lock ICX or lose ICX rewards, as well as slashing, where P-reps that don't operate will get their bond slashed. And they said this should lower circulating ICX supply, and then no more freebies. So, I think we've talked about these. We talked about ISS 3.1 a decent amount, but certainly these two qualities as well. With the bonding, it makes it, it kind of requires P-reps to have higher stake in the game, and because they have to hold a good chunk of ICX, just simply dumping their rewards as soon as they get them is a lot less feasible now, as well as ensuring that there's a greater incentive to not mess up on the node operation side of things, which is the most important thing P-reps do, and by penalizing those who are unable to properly operate their node. So two good things. Again, not the only things involved in ISS 3.1, but Min was just certainly pointing those things out.
Yeah, it's a good one. And the bonding, we know. I don't know. In the breakdown, we haven't touched on this a lot, but essentially, for P-reps to earn their rewards, if say they have 100,000 ICX staked to them, they need to put up a 5% bond off that value to earn max rewards. But the difference here, and I think this was lost maybe along the way, is it's a gamified approach. So the P-reps have to put anywhere between 1 to 5%, and it would scale. So if everyone, for example, the bottom do just 1% off their total stake supply, well, then what will happen is if the higher P-reps have staked a higher percentage, they'll get more of a reward. So this is where it entices your P-reps as your votes are growing to kind of also ensure you are keeping up with that percentage of up to 5% bonding, so that you are maximizing your rewards. Otherwise, it kind of starts to move to different P-reps accordingly if you don't have the maximum bond. So it's interesting. It's taking an approach the way Tezos do it, I believe. But ultimately, more responsibility there. You can't just spin up a node and hope for the best. It costs money to run a node, and yeah, you need to be doing things. And now with slashing, I haven't researched that in too much detail, but I get the concept. They don't do a certain amount of things aren't completed, or they miss blocks for whatever reason, downtime. There would be slashing. That would, I think it doesn't slash voters staking. It's more in maybe perhaps their bond gets slashed or something like that. But I am really literally thinking of that randomly. I have not researched the slashing component. I need to get across that. The other stuff I have though. But yeah, it's
Yeah,
good.
well, there's kind of incremental penalties. So if you miss like a certain number of blocks in a row, you kind of become, I think it's like become ineligible for your P rep rewards for a certain amount of time. And then, but if there's an extreme version, like you haven't done it for again, I'm just kind of off the top of my head here. If you miss it for like a very extended period of time, or if you get eliminated as a P rep for acting maliciously or something like that, your entire bond just gets it just gets wiped out. So if you're a peer up and you have and you're receiving, I don't know, let's say 1 million votes, um, and you have 5%, you have 50,000 ICX, which at this point is a little under 100 grand. That's a lot of money on the line, and so you are much more incentivized to make sure you're not screwing around and missing block validation and things like that. So that's that's where it could be truly helpful. I doubt anyone gets slashed like that, just because I don't think anyone wants to. But I guess that's kind of the point.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, well, this is what we mean by he's just come out and been active, and I think this is there's a bit of history here, isn't there? Icongraph, and I don't want to dive into that, but early days, and this is where we see why the P rep model is changing. I guess there was this big grand vision of the P reps. It hasn't come played out that way. Mind you, there are certain teams and P reps. It has actually played out the way it's been envisioned, and probably they are feeling the changes will impact the way they've set up and built, and I totally get that. But overall, as from an ecosystem perspective, I do feel I have a strong view where it hasn't come to fruition, and I do feel the current changes are good, especially. I always come back to this iconographer. Let the change happen, and when you see those daily rewards going through in CPS, that shift in mentality will just come far easier. It'll be a different ball game. So, yeah, it's good. It's good. This can't wait for IISS 3.1. Although I do feel IISS needs a name change. That's the real name change that we should be talking about.
Yeah, I always like my brain always reads it as International Space Station, even though that's not entirely accurate. But
Yeah.
uh, anyway, we do have some breaking news here to a certain extent. I just got a notification that the Icon development roadmap update for November just got pushed out. So it's not super long. So I'm just gonna I imagine, guys, we're totally unprepared to cover this because it wasn't in our notes,
Yep.
but I figure it's sitting right in front of me. So I'm just going to kind of read from it. So, intro of with the successful launch of Icon 2.0 in early November, our team resumed work on BTP integrations, Java Score support, IISS upgrades, and more. And so here's, I guess, the key part on BTP. This past month, we made significant progress on blockchain transition protocol integrations with Moonriver, Binance Smart Chain, and Near. So for Moonriver, they said through our extensive testing with Moonriver BTP integration, we were able to identify and fix a variety of bugs, including transaction disorder caused by slow network conditions, unstable socket connections, and mismatched block times. A stable version of the Moonriver integration is currently running on testnet, and we plan on pushing it to a production environment testing next week. So that's certainly some nice progress there. For Binance Smart Chain, we are putting the finishing touches on the Nexus portal for Binance Smart Chain, and a hard fork has been initiated by the BSC team. Once the hard fork has been completed, the BTP integration with BSC will go live. So that's pretty exciting news. And the Near integration team has completed all the required backend work for BTP integration and has provided us with a very detailed integration document. We are now in the process of adding support for Near in the Nexus portal. So, especially as far as BSC and Near are concerned, I can't tell. I guess it depends on how long the hard fork on BSC takes. For like Icon 2.0, that was like a 2-week process. So I don't know if we'll get more clarity on that. Obviously, it's a little hard. Not that they're remotely close to the same thing,
Yeah.
but nonetheless, I'm just kind of look. I'm reaching for various comparison.
Yep. Yep.
Apples and oranges. I'll go, or at least apples to apples, but that was more apples to oranges. and it sounds like near is pretty close as well. So I can't tell if this means like a week or a month or 3 months or what. But nonetheless, certainly pretty exciting. And then there's a second section in here. I guess. Well, I guess. Do you have any thoughts on the BTP news
No, no.
that I just read?
Is it the Medium article? Is it on Medium?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
Let me.
It's Icon Foundation published it in Hello Icon World 5 minutes ago.
I'll just find it. No, look. I think it's great to get an update. I understand the vague comment you made. Let's try and get some feedback to the foundation around it, and so that we can get a little bit more specific. I just want to have it up for everyone while you're running through it. We had not
Yeah.
prepped this, but it's good to get individual chain updates. I think that's great. Interesting what they discovered with Moon River. Binance Smart Chain, yes, the hard fork. So I laugh. I said no when you said it because one of the things that is happening in that ecosystem is there's a lot of hard forks left, right, and center at the moment. As yeah, just the way the ecosystem is. So I don't. Hopefully, it doesn't require as much planning for this hard fork to happen. Yeah, but exciting times. I think connecting to Binance Smart Chain is awesome because all of a sudden we have access to a lot of tokens and we can move assets from Binance onto Binance Smart Chain and bridge it across far cheaper than, for example, USDC. I don't know. It's not that I have any information here, but things like that. It all of a sudden gives us access via the bridge to move, bypassing ETH and all those fees. So, very excited to
Yeah,
see.
and Binance is notoriously Binance Smart Chain is notoriously cheap.
Yes.
So especially being able to access things like Pancake Swap, and there's a lot of emerging projects that are being launched on Binance as far as the tokens are concerned on Binance Smart Chain, just because it is so much cheaper and easier to use, at least relative to as far as the cost is concerned.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of hype around Moon River right now. Binance Smart Chain is obviously what it is. It's already kind of a top tier thing, and then near there's a lot of hype around too. So it's good that we've known about these three forever now, but the fact that we're so close at this point in the cycle is certainly encouraging. So there's no section here on Icon 2.0. It mainly looks like just kind of an update saying, hey, we were able to successfully deploy Icon 2.0. It does say now that Icon 2.0 is in stable operation, we've shifted our focus to launching Java smart contract support, IISS 3.1, and an updated ICX feed policy for December. We are currently conducting internal testing for the new feed policy, which will impact smart contract execution costs. After the feed policy has been finalized, Java smart contract support will be able to activate it on the mainnet. And then they also, relevant to our ISS 3.1 conversation we just had, specification for ISS 3.1 is being revisited as peer reps have raised concerns over the 5% bond requirement and slashing mechanism. Since Icon 2.0 is still in its early days, the slashing penalty moves to 0% upon activation of ISS 3.1. As the network demonstrates stable operation over time, peer reps will coordinate to increase the slashing penalty. Feel free to join the bond requirement and slashing mechanism discussion on the Icon community forum. So I think this is a good thing to point out. Icon 2.0 was by all means successful as far as the transition is considered, but it's still a relatively nascent new network. So there might be some little hiccups here and there, and if a peer happens to be a victim of those, we don't necessarily penalize them. So I recognize the gradual implementation rather than the full throttle version of that. So I can certainly understand that.
Yep. Look, I will say this. I find it very interesting that concerns around the bond requirement. The slashing mechanism I get, and there's ongoing conversations around that, but this bond requirement, it has been out for a year. I mean, literally, this has been known for a year. A lot of P-reps have been saving towards it, etc. Overall, though, look, it's meant to be a decentralized chain and stuff, so people can start raising whenever they want. It's not going to be a well-oiled machine where things just move the way. Uh, I guess if we need to get these changes that are better for the network, some people may not see it that way, and that's where the back and forth happens. But I'm surprised by the bond requirement being a concern. I get it if people haven't been saving. Yes, that would be. But I also think the lack of clear understanding around how it actually works. Like until the other day, I had not realized it would scale based on. In my head, I had it. So one P rep could have 5% off their total, and another P rep could have 1%. And in my head, I was like, well, because they're not earning their max rewards because they only have 1%, what happened to those? What happens to the rewards there that really they should be earning? I thought they just vanished, but they don't. They actually go to the other people, to the other P reps. And the other P reps earn more than that. So that's where it becomes this fight for, well, if everyone is kind of at 4%, and then people can fight over how much rewards they get, ensuring the bond is at its max. So, look, yeah, good update. Vague, I get, but
Well, I guess the devil's advocate on the, and I don't know what this. I haven't followed the specific problems people have, but I think there are a few P reps who recently joined, and based on kind of the work they've done, were able to jump pretty high into the rankings. So they just might not have been around long enough.
true.
Even if they were saving rigorously as soon as they started, they still might be. If they got 5 million votes overnight or something like that, that's, and they're starting from scratch. I don't know off the top of my head who that might be, but I do know there are some over the last, I don't know, 6 months to a year, some folks who popped up, but they are certainly in the minority.
No, actually, you know what? It's such a good call out. Arcade Node I can think of. They're
Right, that was
going,
the one that popped up.
yeah.
In my brain.
Even Protocol 7, I don't know, have they always been a P rep, or they've been building, but I
No, I
think,
think they're pretty new
yeah,
also.
and they're doing good things for the ecosystem. So yeah, I take my comments back. You're right, Icongraph. I always think legacy instead of.
How long is Parrot?
Oh,
How long have they been a P rep?
they've been a while.
Longer, but I can't remember if they. I feel like I can't remember if they showed up kind of around when Balance launched, or if they've been
They
around for a
did.
lot longer
So
than that.
so a lot of this was the other thing. A lot of the builders who built like Ohm and Balanced, they weren't or in the top 22, or some of them were, but all of them were at the lower end. So their nodes weren't making money anyway. They could sustain themselves because the foundation had given grants. Now, this table turned because once Balance launched, the SICX automatically delegated to all the builders. And until Ohm came along for a long period, that's where all the ICX, so if you moved into SICX, it automatically went to all the builders, and that's why you saw a big shift in the top 22, and we actually saw some of the crap, and I do mean that, where there was some in the top 10 especially that just did nothing for the ecosystem, and we saw them just get flushed out, and this is one of the main reasons. I have a few views on that. I think it's great, but at the same time, yeah, but Ohm launched with the functionality to delegate your SICX via the Ohm token to the broader ecosystem if you're using DeFi, which is great and something Balance needs to have launched ASAP in my eyes. But yes, that's a bit of a story there, Icongrapher. And so, yep, they have been around. They haven't had the, haven't been in the top, so their node wouldn't have been making. But now they have worker tokens and things, and they're this main protocol on Icon. So, and they do good work, so they should be in the top 22. And yeah, I don't know if they fall in that category in my eyes. We're not having enough to do the bond, etc. But this is not what it's about. It's not for me to be making any judgment calls. I think you really called it out and opened my eyes. There are a lot of good new P reps that are aiding Icon that wouldn't have had the luxury of earning the rewards of being in the top 22 that some people who have been there would. And yeah, the bond could be quite tough there. Agree. let's see how those. We'll aim to get those conversations out. What's going on? You've got the link. You can go and explore. I had it out in the forum. It's a lot of interesting conversation going on in there. I haven't revisited it, so I'm keen to get my head across it. But in the interest of time, Icongrapher, let's keep moving on.
Yep. So we just want to call this out really quick. So TJ, aka Shikmaru, posted a poll. Basically asked if a development team from one of our BTP partners like Moonriver or Near created a CPS proposal to build a protocol on their chain, not Icon, but integrated BTP into their application. Would you call it a successful use of the CPS funds? And 52% of Iconists said they would support projects access, basically saying yes. So I think this was a pretty good question to ask, because it's certainly a possibility that at some point this is going to be something that pops up. I tend to agree that whatever I think once BTP integrations get set up and when BTP is being used on other chains, I consider that part of the broader community. And maybe I'd say, if there's a set amount of funds and we run out and there's a team who wants to build on Icon and there's a team who wants to build off, on a different chain, but with BTP integration, I'd probably give preference to the one building on Icon. But I imagine scenarios where that happens are not going to be super frequent, just because I think the CPS is pretty well funded, and up to now we haven't had issues with scarcity or anything like that. So my default position is, it's whatever we can do to help grow the BTP community. I think that's a good thing, especially when there's a clear, explicit use case for BTP, even if it's on another chain.
Yeah, look, agree. I think I did comment on this. Yes, but again, I think it's not a version 5 utilizing BTP. Day dot, there is utilization of BTP built into the protocol, and that's my big thing. Sorry, otherwise, like, you can't have what's the point of them building some protocol on Near and it's got nothing to do with Icon and it won't even utilize BTP? Like, they say, oh, it's connected, but there's no real use case. So I feel like certain steps we should be thorough in, and I would hope the P reps do their due diligence and the community should get involved. But by default, if they're building something with the clear goal of going, yes, we want to take BNUSD into this application and do this, so our version 1 will be connected to BTP to enable that, come to CPS, let's get funding, let's get this ball rolling, especially if there's a surplus, which I do believe everyone's going to be surprised that we will have a surplus in CPS.
Especially with BTP transactions,
exactly,
regularly funding it. So
exactly.
So speaking of CPS, a couple proposals just want to touch quickly on that are currently pending. So the first one is a NFT game. It's an Alice in Wonderland themed NFT game that takes its information from the popular Wolf.com game, and this is proposed to be built on ice. So we've had a couple, but Geodude is working on a game on ice. So this is another one that would be, aimed to launch essentially with ice, depending on how the timelines work out. So we're not going to go into a whole lot of detail on this one, but certainly check out the proposal if you have a chance to. Certainly nice to see, this is why kind of the value of having a, Ethereum virtual machine sidechain is it gets, it's a lot easier to kind of iterate and build and things like that, especially for people with familiarity working on Ethereum and things like that. So certainly nice to get some initial momentum there. Looks like a pretty cool project and something that I'm certainly going to keep an eye on. And then the other one is Karma DAO. And this has been floating around for a few days now, maybe a couple weeks. It's based around Olympus DAO, which you probably heard of by now. It's been seen as kind of the kickoff project for what they're calling DeFi 2.0, which is kind of the, I guess an even more complicated approach to DeFi. I guess is the kind of the quasi cynical way for me to look. But certainly, a pretty cool project. I'm still kind of getting my, doing my research on it and getting my better, a firmer head around it so I can truly understand it. I'd like to do an article here in the near future, kind of tied in with my Guide to DeFi series that, I think hopefully everyone's read by now. But we won't go into a whole lot of detail on that one because there is an interview planned, I believe, next week
Yes,
or
so
upcoming soon.
we'll do a live stream, and I'll get this out so the community can get involved. I got Robbie and probably someone else from Protocol 7 to come and talk about Karma DAO. I think just before I touch on this with Wonderland, look, guys, one thing to these proposals are looking like they're getting voted through, which is great to see. And Wonderland is by the team that has worked on Gangster Bet, the team that built that. So again, we have a team that has successfully delivered a product and has come up with a new product that is kind of it's cool because it's actually launching on ice. It's looking to deploy within 2 weeks of ice launching. It is copying a very popular ETH game, and nothing wrong with that. It's all the rage, and it's actually quite different. I never realized until I researched where the gamification component and where you can make money, or there are odds where if you go to harvest the NFT, etc., things like that, it can vanish and you lose out. And they've put this concept in the Wonderland scenario, which is quite cool. So very excited. But what the call out is, again, successfully delivered product, come back for funding. Karma DAO. Now this, I'm extremely excited about this because one view I have, and I've picked up a lot of the layer ones that we're seeing have a lot of success. One thing I've noticed in common is they have been able to fork very quickly this DeFi 2.0 concepts that have kicked off on Ethereum from a what is it, a reserve currency perspective to a protocol owned liquidity perspective. I mean, we've got stuff on Harmony, we've got stuff on Near, we've got stuff on Binance Smart Chain and all the other Avalanche, and these protocols give these insane APYs, and there's logic to it. I've actually done research and kind of got it now in my head, but these insane APYs have attracted people like me who has never dabbled in Harmony or what's the Avalanche, never ever, not even bothered looking at it. But once I was trying to understand this, I was like, oh, okay, let me just quickly go. And one thing that was in common was there was 2 or 3 forks of these protocols on those chains, and a lot of people have been flocking, moving their liquidity into these chains to try and get that ridiculous APY. So Icon, obviously there is those challenges, that's why we've got ICE launching, but what's really awesome about Karma DAO is it's not Olympus DAO. It is Olympus's DAO's new product, which is Olympus Pro, where they've stripped out one component and they're strictly focusing on protocol owned liquidity. And it's really important for the Icon ecosystem because we don't want, it takes time and we kind of need this now. And what Karma DAO is doing is it's building something that all our core protocols can utilize: Craft, Balance, Ohm, even Icon Bet. Any of these protocols can basically go to Karma DAO and go, you know what? We want to move to a protocol owned liquidity model. And what that means is at the moment, every protocol that launches, let's take Ohm. Ohm is a great example. Ohm has launched. They incentivize liquidity by giving us, the people, the Ohm token as a reward if we put, money into the pairs, which is Ohm USDS, Ohm BNUSD, etc. Okay, but what happens is the tokens being distributed at 400,000 a day to compensate people for adding their liquidity into the pool, and it's very temperamental because I could go, okay, well, Ohm has now, I've received a ton of Ohm, I want to sell it, so I keep selling it. Or all of a sudden the price of Ohm drops and I'm like, well, I'm out of this liquidity pool, and I pull out my thousands of dollars that I wish I had, but I pull it out, and all of a sudden that impacts the price of Ohm because now there's less liquidity in the pools. When people are trading, the price is starting to tank even further. It has this compounding effect in a negative way, but it is also the only way to incentivize people to take that risk. Now, what Karma DAO's solution and Olympus DAO have done is gone, well, me as a user, I'll go and add it to the LP pool, and then straight away take that LP to Karma DAO and say, I will give up my $2,000 of LP to the Karma DAO, and they will give me at a discount, say if Ohm, for example, is trading at 30 cents, they'll give me a 25% discount. And I give them the LP and they'll give me the Ohm token at a 25% discount that vests over, say, a 5 or 10 day period. So what happens here is now Karma DAO owns the liquidity and it stays that way. So then the DAO starts to take all the liquidity fees, etc., like that. All of a sudden, the dispersion of the rewards isn't going to people to sell. It's all sticking in the protocol. And this concept is known as protocol-owned liquidity. So if the markets react, the liquidity is still staying the same. No, the protocol will not pull liquidity because they own it, and their goal is to keep the liquidity and keep growing it as big as possible. So this is a very simplified version, and I've got this kind of map that Karma DAO has put up. But I hope that's really helped explain. This is the product they are creating, not a reserve currency like everything that's being forked, which is the Olympus DAO product. It is the pro product that they're creating that strictly is for protocol own liquidity. And that's how it will benefit all our existing protocols, because they can go in rather than redoing their token mechanics and trying to figure out how to implement the protocol own liquidity. They can just go to Karma DAO and let the users go to Karma DAO and give up their LPs, and it's managed there. So I hope that's helped. For me, like when it's clicked, I'm like, this is the way. I think of that meme, this is the way. So yeah, very excited. You probably, even as I talk about it, I get quite excited because I'm able to actually talk about it and explain how it works, and it's got me, it's good. It's a good change. I know we said we'd just touch on it, but sorry.
Well, and it's no, I think that was good to go into, because I think there's people who are wrapping their head around it. And like I said, well, maybe I'll do an article on it, and Fez will do a video on it or something like that, just to kind of help pump out some more content. We'll both do what our so
yeah.
stay, and of course listen to the interview
Yes.
once that comes out here in a few days.
And that's the thing. So that one is a live stream. So, and I've intentionally kind of planned it that way because I figured let's have the guys on, and if you have these questions, let's ask them. And one of the things Robbie said is like, Fez, we are still exploring and putting everything around it. So yes, let's get the community involved. So I will have the dates. I'll have it the countdown and everything out soon. And I hope to see people join in. Now we are at different time zones, so we've just had to make something work that suits both of us, but hopefully everyone else y'all can join in and start getting involved in the conversation. But I'm going to be drilling him. I'm going to be asking all kinds of questions because it is a topic that I want to keep growing my knowledge base on. So okay, enough of that. Let's keep moving, Icongrapher.
So we'll just kind of quickly run through a little, few other little bits of news here. Don't need to spend a whole lot of time on it because I think we're probably bumping against what our normal time limit is here. So Arcade Node as a blockchain panel, December 15th, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Icon will be hosting a panel discussion event on DeFi and interoperability with blockchain clubs at Columbia, NYU University, and Fordham, New York City. So those are all three universities in New York City. So that'll be, I imagine a lot of, especially people at, Columbia, a lot of smart folks there, potentially, future people who are going to be tied into working in finance, things like that. Very, a very nice frontline kind of approach to spreading awareness about Icon and especially the interoperability and things like that. So very nice to see Arcade Node take on that initiative. And I don't know if there's a way to kind of, it doesn't seem like there's a way to, I don't know if it's telestreamed or whatever,
it is,
or streamed or something like that. It is. There you go.
So they'll be live streamed. I think they'll update the channel. It should be out soon. And just Icongrapher, I know we're going to skip quickly. I'm sorry, but man, you've been away for a while. So you know what? People are in for a treat. This is really important because there has been a bit of noise, around, well, why aren't our partners talking about BTP? Why aren't they excited? This should be, if we're saying it's a game-changing interoperable solution, why aren't they saying it as well? And I get that, totally get it, and this is kind of the answer. Like this is the foundation have been in the background with Arcade Node, and this is another thing. This is why they're supporting Arcade Node, and I've been calling out the credit. They've been pushing, they've listened to feedback, and via Arcade Node, they're supporting them and implementing a lot of what the community is asking. And this is the answer. You know, we've got the CEO and founder of Moonbeam on there. The Harmony, all basically most of our partner chains are turning up to talk at this, all around interoperability, all around our BTP solution. So, this is kind of cool. This is exciting. This is what the community wants, and this is what's happening. So as soon as that link's out and stuff, we'll get it out there. But it's cool that it's university. If you listen to Max when we interviewed him as well, there's a reason they're really trying to go after that audience, because this is the first step. Next step is arranging hackathons for uni students and things to get involved, and then using what they if the engagement they get to direct them to CPS. So it's a cool plan, and this is the first step of that. So very excited about this and what it leads to.
So another piece of news: Supernode Racing is hosting an AMA on their Discord channel this Thursday, December 2nd at 8 p.m. Eastern, which is in 1 hour from when we're recording this. So I don't know if by now you'll be able to, but hopefully you would have participated in this. And if not, I assume they'll probably potentially provide a summary, or you can even just hop on the Discord and probably just roll through the questions and things like that. So hopefully you're able to tune into that one way or another. So this was kind of cool. GangstaBet teased just a little bit of a video. It was probably, I don't know, 5 seconds, something like that, of kind of a 3D world. Looked like, it was a city essentially. And so, not much detail beyond that, but looks like a kind of expansion of the GangstaBet universe, especially as far as a kind of a metaverse play potentially is concerned. So I'm just speculating here, but kind of it looked pretty good too. As far as 3D, it wasn't like PlayStation 5 graphics, but it looked pretty slick in my mind. So it'll be, I'm certainly excited to learn about how that's going to work and play out and everything like that, and how that integrations might go. We had Icon did a interview with Red Fox, or I'm sorry, R Fox, recently. Do you want to talk about that, Fez?
Yes. So I think it was all around the partnership. If you are not aware of R Fox, Red Fox Labs, what they're doing, what they're building, what their metaverse is about, kind of this interview, step by step, I have Ben, the CEO, talk through all the different products, and then I have him talk about the metaverse, because I feel what's really cool about what they've done is they've strategically been acquiring the services they need to make their metaverse successful. And their metaverse is literally like the what's that movie? Oh, Ready Player One?
Ready Player One?
Yes. It is literally that, but it's like the internet, what we have today versus at the start, how it started. So the metaverse will start like that, and that's using, and it will, but that's their goal, and they've acquired, streaming services, things, because they don't want to be tied to YouTube or anyone's restrictions. So they built their portfolio of products, including games, etc., and a lot of infrastructure has been built so people can build on top of that for their metaverse. So it's really cool hearing Ben talk. I will say this, Icongraph, I don't think I told you. So, sometimes when you're getting stuff ready for interviews, people want questions and things like that beforehand. And I did create a set of questions. I had found out through Davey Darko, who's secured everything for Icon, that Ben doesn't go by questions. He'll just start talking. But courtesy, I did it, and before the interview I actually said, look, I've prepared questions, but I've heard you may not refer to them. And he said, Fez, if you ask me a question that I cannot answer, I would have grave concerns about my ability to do my job. This is literally off that this is how it started, and I don't feel I've shared this. I haven't shared this with anyone, but that to me was like, okay. And through the interview, you'll see it. Like, through anything, he knew in detail. He started talking of how they arrived at the product fit, what steps they took, what business analysis they done. Yeah, really enjoyed the conversation. And if you haven't, it's definitely a must listen in my eyes, especially if you just don't know anything about Red Fox Labs. Then this is the podcast to listen to.
Absolutely. And so just the last little tidbit here. We got the update from the marketing campaign from Arcade Node. Basically, first, here's what they said. First video of our Icon TikTok sponsorship is live. River Crypto educates its 100K followers on stablecoin farming on OM Finance. The results were 15,000 views and 300 shares in the first 3 hours. So I assume those numbers are even higher as of now because this got posted yesterday. So just another neat little initiative and further spreading the awareness and a nice little, the community taking on some of the burden of the marketing efforts. And nice to see it's looks like it's going pretty well as far as the TikTok one's concerned.
Yep, this is great. And what's really cool is I loved how what I'm now labeling the community. Oh well, actually, Digital Dave has labeled it the community-led marketing campaign. They saw this Arcade Node working in the background and through 400 ICX. And you know what? I'm really loving every week how detailed the updates are that come through from Digital Dave, where communities banded together. They're showing transparency in how the funds are being used. And shout out to Arcade Node. Great, this TikToker has quite a lot of follows. And look, this is stuff, again, I come back to. Community's been asking for it. It's happening. It was happening before, but I feel at times there was just not enough light being thrown at it to raise awareness that actually this is happening. It's happening on different mediums, and if you're not connected there, you're not seeing it. So this is cool. Real good stuff. I think that's it, isn't it, Iconographer?
Yep, that pretty much does it.
Yeah, Iconographer, you're very big on the 1 hour. We always talk about it. Mainly, we sometimes have hard stops, lives, and I have a day job that I seem to be ignoring. But enough of that. But overall, like I always, when I listen to the Bankless podcast, they always start. They actually have a running joke. They try to get through the news, and they hope it's an hour. But now it's turned. We hope to get through it in an hour and a half. But sometimes these episodes span for 2 hours.
Yeah.
So
that's been. I remember when we first started, it was kind of like sometimes it was a bit hard to kind of track down material, and we'd even set aside like 20 minutes for some a discussion rather than news. But these days there's just too much news to where we're kind of there's too much, and we're end up having to cut stuff out. Just in the interest of time rather than, searching for stuff to include. So that's a good problem to have.
It is. Look, Iconographer, it's been great to have you back. Everyone listening, one thing I want to say thanks, it was really cool. I don't know about you, Iconographer, but found it really cool where people have been posting their Spotify most listened to, and number one podcast is Iron Icon. Like seriously, Davey Darko did that, and then a few people followed. It made my day. Like personally, I even ran to the wife and say, check this out, look at this, which is quite cool. So bottom of our hearts, like thank you everyone for all your support. We at times it's been challenging. Should we be pushing on? Should we be doing this? Time zone, so much effort is involved. But when we see stuff like that and there's so much appreciation, it's like I can't even believe for a moment I doubted should we be doing this. So yeah, thank you from my end. I'm very grateful. And Iconographer, I think this is our 86th episode. So
oh wow,
yeah, we're itching close to the 100. So perhaps we shall do a 100 party.
Yeah, we'll figure something out.
Yeah. Cool. But like, subscribe, share, everyone. If, as usual, not financial advice, do your own research. Do not take our advice and go and, throw your money at anything. Make your own decisions via your own research. But as always, thank you for listening, everyone. Until next week, take care.
See ya.